In our world, we find that there are two just opposite opinions about understanding the world and human civilization. Divide the world into two segments. One is called mythos, other is called logos. So, what are these? How to understand the world better? Today we are going to develop a deeper understanding about the human behavior, human society. Hello friends, in our world we find that there are two just opposite opinions about understanding the world and human civilization. The one opinion is about the reality, that is based on science, but the other opinion is based on mythology, where we have God, where we have culture, traditions, values. So, what are these? How to understand the world better? Today, we are going to develop a deeper understanding about the human behavior, human society. So, friends, first of all, I would like to refer to the Greek mythology, which divide the world into two segments. One is called mythos, other is called logos. And these are the two approaches to understand the world. And these two approaches may appear apparently different, but as we will see in the subsequent video, that they are actually two sides of the same coin. The mythos basically represent the realm of myths, legends, while the logos represent the world of reality, which is based on reason, logic, and rational inquiry. So let us first understand logos. The logos basically refer to the world which is real. That is something which is material in nature, physical in nature. It emphasizes the importance of empirical evidence, observation, and scientific inquiry. And here we try to understand the world through the natural laws, through principles, and through the physical observation of the thing. The aim here is to provide the objective view of the reality. And the knowledge which we try to create here should be verifiable, provable. Some examples of the logos are like science, philosophy, history, the empirical research, critical thinking, and all that. And these logos are helpful in understanding the physical world and acquiring the objective knowledge. On the other side, we have another part or another aspect of this word which we can call mythos. Now, this word of mythos is not real, but anything which is not covered under logos. For example, you have myths, stories, fictions, movies, then the mythologies like Greek mythology or Puranic stories, religion, poems, and these scientific fantasies or science fictions. All these falls under the category of mythos. Why? Because this is not based on reality, but this is based on imagination. Now, the important feature of the mythos is that it will have supernatural elements, magical elements. For example, you will find God, devil, ghost, soul, heaven, hell, afterlife, rebirth. All these concepts you will find here, which is not based on reality. There is no scientific evidence for that, but still it exists in the human society. It is based on storytelling, it is based on symbolism, metaphor. All those things are basically part of mythos. The important part of mythos is that they invoke emotions in you. And here, whatever feels good, we accept that as true, and whatever feels bad, we reject that. So friend, this mythos word is very, very mysterious because it is not a reality, but still it plays as important role in shaping human civilization as the real thing which is based on science. So, what is the importance of mythos? Mythos are basically based on myths or stories which are not real, which is not objective. That means there are multiple variations of the same thing. But then why it exists in this world? Because it basically expresses human desires, human aspirations, and emotions of the people. It may not exist in the reality, but it exists in the collective consciousness of the people. A myth, which is a fiction, which is a story which is based on imagination, every myth is not popular. Some myths become popular. Why they become popular? Because they touches your heart. There is something in those myths which represent the reality, and that is why we like it. And once some concept or some story or some mythology is liked by large number of people, then it stays in the collective consciousness of the people and become a reality. So this mythologies basically represent the emotions of the people at a micro level, that means on a larger level. If you want to understand what the society think is right or wrong, you have to actually rely on these mythos. And they are responsible for creation of human civilization, culture, and traditions. The example of such mythos is like God, for example, soul, marriage, the love, relationship, the concept of morality, or the sexual relationships. All these are basically part of this mythos. And they will vary. They are not objective, but they are real in the sense that they stays in the mind of the people. And they are constantly evolving just as the society is evolving. So friends, this mythos is something which is based on imagination, emotion, intuition, and here we decide the things based on what we like and what we don't like. Objective reality or the logos are based on our rational thinking, and it is same for everybody. There is no subjectivity in that, and they are very much interconnected. For example, if we talk about food, the logos of the food can be the calories, micronutrients, for example like carbohydrate, proteins and fats, or the micronutrients like vitamins, enzymes and minerals. Now these are the objective things which our body needs. But then we don't choose the food by just measuring the calories and all that. We choose the food which we love to eat, which tastes good. And therefore the mythos in respect of the food will be the different type of cuisine like Indian, Chinese, Italian, Thais, etc. And there also within each type of cuisine there are thousands of varieties of food. In the same way, in respect of the cloths, the logos are the very purpose of wearing cloth. For example, the purpose of wearing cloth is to cover your body, protect you from heat, sun, or give you comfort in summer. But we don't wear the cloths based on its utility. We wear the cloth based on the design, color, texture and material which looks good to us and feels good to us. Similarly, if you talk about the nation, in the nation there are certain logos which are objective in nature. For example, the national boundaries, state, districts, law, government, taxes, these are all objective things and these are the logos. But a nation is not merely what is real or what is objective, but it is based on mythos like culture, traditions, religion, moral values and ethics. So both things are basically integrated to each other, and if you want to understand any reality which is connected with human beings, we have to find out the logos as well as mythos. The mythos are not same, they keep on changing with time. For example, in the pre-ancient period, there was no difference between humans and animals. They were free to live with anybody. They were having freedom to have physical relationship with anybody. But as we moved to the ancient times, we found that the institution of marriage was created. Then no sex outside marriage was permitted, and a man was permitted to have as many wives as he wants, but not the woman. Even today, In Islam, for example, a man can marry 4 women. But this was again due to the historical reason or the time when this principle was created, because a lot of men used to die in the battlefield, so it was permitted that they can have more women. But in the modern time, monogamy has become a norm, because in the democracy, men and women have the same rights. And in the most civilized world, both are given the same right, and you can marry only once, or you can marry to only one person at a time. So as we can see that the same principle are not applicable as it was there earlier. So mythos keep changing on time. Now these mythos give rise to an institution like marriage, which is a reality, and this basically creates certain other obligations or certain other mythos. For example, when we have created the institution of marriage, the men are assigned the responsibility of bringing up the children. In the animal kingdom, the males have no such responsibility. It is only the females who take care of the children which they produce. Now, when the men are assigned the responsibility of, bringing up the children, they have to be sure that the children belong to them. And therefore, it was made obligatory that men and women must be faithful to each other. Because in those days, there was no provision to stop the birth of the child when there was a physical relationship. And the only way a man can be sure that the child is his is when there is a complete faithfulness. And that's why the extramarital affairs were totally prohibited, and faithfulness was considered to be a virtue, an obligation, so which is a mytho basically. Now, as the civilization progressed, the women got more education, they got equal opportunities, they are working together, and the science has developed many methods by which one can have a physical relationship without having a child. As a result, the things started changing, and now the pleasure has become one of the most important motive for sex, and therefore the physical relationship between unmarried people are becoming more and more acceptable if it is done with the mutual consent, and it has become almost very common in the developed countries in the Western world, and even in India, for example, the extramarital affair is no more illegal if it is done with the mutual consent. So you can see how the change of the reality has transformed the values of the society. So mythos basically keep changing as the society evolves. So these mythos are not natural because they are human creation, and the purpose of mythos is to basically create a cohesive society, provide a common value which everybody must follow. And the mytho of every society is based on its history, geography, then the globalization affected, the type of governance it has, the wars and the conflict. Everything has an impact on the mytho of a society. Now, mythos basically create a common set of values, and it basically makes the society stronger. And then the societies compete with each other, and whenever a society wins, whichever nation wins, you will find that their mythos become popular to the one which is a losing one. For example, in the same country, you will find that the upper class mythos or values of the upper class get basically filtered down to the lower class, who also follow them so that they can also move further down by the trickle down effect. At the global level also we can see that the moral values or the mythos of the developed countries are followed by the underdeveloped countries. Now, if we look at the history of the mankind, we find that, for example, there was a time when Judaism, the original Abraham religion, was basically the most dominant one, and they were very powerful. Later on, what happened that Christianity became very powerful. They started dominating the world, and people started following their values. Now, There was a time when Islam was very powerful in the world. Even India was ruled for thousands of years by Islam. And in that case, people were following their values. In the modern time, there are basically two blocks. One was Western, other was communist. When Russia was powerful and America was powerful, then some countries were following the American system, American values or their mythos, and some were following the mythos of the communist country. Now the China has emerged one of the most powerful country, and so people are losing faith in the mythos or the values of the Western countries, and many people are adopting the values of the Chinese culture and Chinese society. So we can see that whenever societies compete with each other, the mythos of the dominant society become common and they basically trickle down to the other societies. Now friends, these mythos and logos are interconnected. One give birth to another. For example, mythos sometimes change the logos. When we have the mytho basically means something which is there in our imagination. For example, like freedom, universal education, equal rights, or the things which are followed by the democracies. It has led to the change of laws. For example, the laws of marriage, divorce, alimony, all that change because we wanted to incorporate the mythos of freedom, liberty and all that. In the same way, when Germany was two different countries, then their mythos was that we are one society, one culture, and gradually they become one. On the other hand, the mythos that basically the Hindus and Muslims cannot stay together, which was created, this has led to the division of India, and we had now India, Pakistan and Bangladesh. Again, it started from a mytho which became a reality. Similarly, when you change the reality, then the mythos change. So logos also change mythos. For example, when we banned sati, child marriage, we incorporated the provision of divorce and made only monogamy the legal. That basically transformed the society, and these mythologies which were connected with that died. Now we have equal voting rights, intercaste marriages, even same-sex marriages permitted in many countries, and the birth prevention techniques which has been invented by the science where one can have a physical relationship without having child, that has transformed the mythos. And so the values which were prevalent couple of 100 years ago are no more there because the reality has changed. So when the reality changes, the mythos change. So logos change, mythos change, and when the mythos change, then you have change in the logos. These mythos and logos are mutually transmutable. That means one leads to another. For example, God may be a myth, or these mythologies may be just stories and no reality. But once people started believing on them, then it led to the reality or the logos which are in the form of like the religion institutions, priests, popes, temples, art, culture and countries. These are the realities which are based on the mythos. Now once we have these realities like temples, priests, religion, they now propagate that mytho and the magic and we had inquisitions, that leads to the, you can see the reality. So one thing lead to another. God may be in the mind of the people, may not be a reality, but once large number of people believe in God, it become a reality. That's why Stephen Hawking has said, I don't fear God, I fear believers. Because while God may not punish the people who will criticize God, the believer may. Likewise, physical institutions, for example, when we have court, government or taxation, they are basically created. Why they were created? Because we want to give shape to the mythos of justice, culture and charity. So we want to select the people who are the most suitable or having the highest merit for the government jobs or for any institution. For that we introduce competition. So mythology is one thing. What was the mytho? Merit-based selection. Now merit itself is something which is a mytho because it is only there in the imagination. Just because somebody has scored higher marks in the competition doesn't mean that he is meritorious. But it has given shape to the reality, that is competition. And the competition, one who qualified get more marks, he consider himself to be more meritorious. Likewise, when you have given the concept of democracy, it has created the myth of equality and liberty. And we can also see that equality and liberty has created the institution of mythos. So both these things are basically mutually exchangeable. So let's now conclude what we have learned in today's video. We have understood that the word is divided into two parts, logos and mythos. We have also learned that we have the choice to choose our mythos. And we choose the mythos based on what we like, based on our taste. For example, the dishes, clothes, spouse, religion, all those things, are our mythos which we choose according to our choice. Mythos are imaginary, but they are the foundation of human relationship. And we cannot ignore mythos. We cannot create a society purely on the basis of science, because mythos are necessary for creation of society, emotion, and develop emotional connections. Science can tell you what the reality is, but mythos create the reality which we want. And therefore, knowledge of the logos and mythos is necessary if you want to develop complete understanding of the human behavior and human society. So friends, I hope that you understood today the importance of logos and mythos and how they impact each other, how they are connected with each other. And if we understand this very much concept, then we can understand the human world, and we will not be fighting among ourselves as to which is superior, which is real, because both things are connected with each other and both things are real. Thank you very much.